Hello, everyone, and welcome to this historic February 18th, 2016 episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk. I am your host with the almost, Scotty Ball. Thank you for finding your way to the show this week, whether it be on SoundCloud, YouTube, or my personal favorite, the free Spreaker app. Now, I refer to this as historic because for those math majors out there, this is our 53rd weekly episode of the show, which means that it is our very first episode of our second year here going balls deep, talking sports with you guys. So whether you've gone balls deep every week for the past year with me, or whether you've gone balls deep once or twice and it wasn't quite for you, or or whatever. Regardless, thank you so much for listening to the show and giving me an excuse to do this each and every week. Now let's get our shameless plugs out of the way and then get to talking some sports, as we are probably going to be keeping the show to a slightly smaller running time than what we've been accustomed to here the last 5 months in the heart of NFL football season. Now that is officially behind us, the amount of content will reduce just a little bit here on the show, and our running time should be somewhere between 1 to 2 hours as opposed to the 2 to 3 hours that we had been as of late. Now, if you like the show and you haven't done so already, please make sure to like and friend me, Scotty Ball, on Facebook. That's what you search, Scotty Ball. Or if you're on Twitter, which I am more on Twitter than I am on Facebook, but I'm on both, you can find the show at BDST Show on Twitter. And as far as our mothership station, WNLMradio.com goes, I do have some fun, exciting news regarding that, but we'll save that maybe for next week when I have a few more details and things are a little further along. But we will be having our internet radio station broadcast platform back to us sometime in the near future, for real now, and new and improved and better than ever. And one final plug, and then we'll get to our outline for what's to come on the show. If you have not done so already, please make sure to visit VikingsDigitalDiaries.com on a weekly basis, either Thursday or Friday, whenever you get around to it, for my Throwback Thursday interviews, where I get to sit down for 15 to 20 minutes every week and interview a former Minnesota Viking football player. And if you caught either of my first two interviews so far, the first one was with Bobby Felder, last week's was with Matthew Hatchett. If you caught either of them so far, I think you would be very pleased with how they turned out. I know I was. I found them very entertaining, both to do as well as to listen back to then afterwards. And so trying to spread that word as much as I possibly can. Check it out if you haven't done so already, and make sure to tell other people about it as well. And if you're looking for them on social media, they are Vikings Digital Diaries on Facebook, and on Twitter, search at Vikings Diaries. Alright, well, enough plugs and promos. Let's get to our outline of what we got for sports talk on the show tonight. Now, even though the NFL season is over, as I mentioned, we will still have a little bit of NFL news and topics to discuss in tonight's show. Some retirements, the off-season free agent activity, cuts and signings, and that type of stuff. I don't think anybody can sign yet, but I know people are still being released. Got the combine coming up, all kinds of stuff yet. So we'll check in. There's still a little bit of NFL news to talk about, but mostly we'll be shifting our focus for tonight's show to the two big winter sports now that take over here and carry us into spring, and have our primary focus for the next couple months. That being the world of NHL hockey and NBA basketball. In the NHL, we will be discussing my and possibly your Minnesota Wild, who are now 2-0 in their last 2 games. It is their first win streak of the calendar year 2016. And the bigger news there is 2 games ago, when the last time the Wild lost was the last time that Mike Yeo was head coach of this team for a game. He was fired since the last time we talked, and we talked about that on last week's show. We've talked about that on many shows over our 52 episodes, and Yeo keeping or not keeping his job with the Wild. So it finally happened. We are seeing immediate positive results here, albeit on a small scale against marginal competition. But the point being, there is plenty both to talk about and be excited about if you are a hockey fan of the Minnesota Wild here in the state of hockey. So we will be definitely talking Minnesota Wild hockey on tonight's show. We will also be talking Minnesota Timberwolves basketball and NBA basketball. This past weekend we saw the NBA All-Star Weekend, where festivities lasted Friday through Sunday. Friday being the celebrity game and the Rising Stars game. Then we had on Saturday the skills challenge, the dunk contest, and the skills challenge, the 3-point contest, and the dunk contest, in that order, excuse me. And then on Sunday we had the actual playing of the All-Star game. So plenty to discuss with what all happened there. If you watched it or if you didn't watch it, wow, big difference between the people who watched it and the people who didn't, because it was freaking phenomenal. It was the type of watch that you don't ever forget as a sports fan. So you can bet your bouncing ball that we will be talking pro basketball, both All-Star Weekend and moving forward here now into the second half of the season. We also had the trade deadline come and go today, so we'll look in there, see what all did or didn't happen, more likely than not, at the NBA trade deadline as well. We'll do a little bit of college basketball talk. Some of the Minnesota Gophers, possibly. They are epically, borderline historically bad, so we'll take a peek at that, as well as hopefully the top 25 standings and any news that might be going on in the college basketball world. Maybe we'll take a peek into the world of Major League Baseball, as spring training is just right around the corner. So maybe we'll talk a little bit of Twins lineup tonight. Maybe not. I'm not sure, but we will have that coming up sometime soon. If it's not this week, it'll be one of these coming weeks. We'll have a nice big baseball dive episode, Twins related, and then from there we'll do our annual picks, that we do for all sports here on the show. And then also we'll probably be talking a little bit of golf. We'll see who won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am tournament last week, what we got for a tournament coming up this week. Maybe take a peek at NASCAR, maybe not. Some boxing news to discuss, or boxer news to discuss, involving one Manny Pacquiao and some extremely controversial comments that he made. We will also talk Ronda Rousey and some comments that she made in an interview that she did recently, as well as her involvement in the recently released, now available in stores, 3 cover girl issue of the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. So we got that coming up. Yeah, you'll get my thoughts and takes on that. And then, of course, as always, we'll be talking a little pro wrestling, both in the world of WWE and my personal favorite, Lucha Underground. Lucha, 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 Lucha. Alright, so that's what's called coming up on the show. Thanks again for tuning in. Alright, well, now that you have heard all of the possible opening topics for the show, it is time to place your wagers if you play the Balls Deep at Home gambling game, or the Balls Deep at Home drinking game. Either way, it's time for you to get ready if you participate. Let's see, boy. A lot of worthy topics actually. Rhonda, Manny, NBA All-Star Weekend, but we are starting with some hockey talk. That is right. We are starting the show off with hockey. Your opening topic for Ball's hit opening segment. Everybody say it with me. 3, 2, 1. Ball's on fire. What's got Scotty Ball? Me, yours truly, the most on fire, the most heated up, the most fired up, is the Minnesota Wild, who have finally fired head coach Mike Yeo, because Yeo had to go. Yeo had to go. Yeo had to go. This has been long overdue. We've been saying this for the entire year that we've been on the air here. Nothing against Mike Yeo. Personally, he's a great, super likable, nice guy. But for whatever reason, he had grown completely incompetent when it came to coaching our Minnesota Wild hockey team. He had completely lost the locker room. There was no effort. There was no hustle. There was no focus. There was no energy. It was just a pathetic performance night after night after night. And finally, someone was held accountable. And that was our big gripe last season and this season, is that no one on this Wild team was being held accountable for the struggles. And finally, we have some accountability with the firing of former Minnesota Wild head coach Mike Yeo, and that means that there is a new man at the helm, and he goes by the name of John Torchetti. And here in Minnesota, very early in his tenure, mind you, but in his first 2 games, the Wild have gone 2-0, scoring a combined total of 10 goals, 5 in each game. And our new interim head coach has already established a fun new nickname for himself here in the land of 10,000 lakes, and that is simply the Torch, John Torchetti. And it's actually very, very fitting, because he has lit a spark in this team. In the 2 games that he has been the coach, you have seen an energy level and an effort level from the Minnesota Wild that we haven't seen here since the beginning of this season, when they looked like, a firm lock to be a playoff team and possibly one of the top 3 in the Central Division. Now that is all but a pipe dream. The most we could really hope for is to climb back in and get one of those 2 wild card spots. I believe we are currently still 2 points back of the 8th and final wild card spot in the Western Conference for the National Hockey League. Now, as I mentioned, the 5 goals that they have scored in each of the 2 games under the Torchetti era is fantastic to see. That kind of offensive output, especially here in Minnesota, it's something we're not really used to. In the last game, you even saw it from guys like Pominville, who just, have had terribly unproductive years. We've got, even though this was technically a Yeo call-up, Eric Holla has even, that's like, he's my new favorite guy on the team now, just because I like his last name. Every time he's out there, I'm like, Holla! But so you do have some players stepping up from out of nowhere as well, in addition to the coaching change. And the Wild are currently trying to keep that momentum going here with their Canadian road trip, as right now they are, as I'm recording this, they are out in Edmonton facing the Edmonton Oilers. It is in the second period as I'm watching right now, and the Wild are up 3-2, 3 goals already here in the game. Now, as I mentioned, we have given up 2 goals this game, and in the 2 games that Torchetti has been here, we have given up a combined total of 7 goals now here in what would be 7.5 periods of hockey. And that is something that the Wild have struggled with for some time here now this season, is playing good defense. Mind you, most of that has not been a result of any poor goalie play. That has mostly been the result of poor puck control and just, poor play from the defensemen as well. We got too many defensemen on this team, in my opinion, or at least